A recent report from inside the organization has sparked real concern among Knicks fans, as early signs suggest a disconnect may already be forming between new head coach Mike Brown and the team's front office when it comes to rotations and lineup structure. There's a lot to unpack here, and we're going to dive into all of it. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. We've got another packed update for you on the Knicks today, and we're jumping straight into it. And just as a quick reminder, if you've been watching regularly and still haven't subscribed, now's the time. We've got consistent updates every single day, sometimes twice a day, and you don't want to miss what's next. Now, let's get into the story. When Mike Brown was officially named head coach of the New York Knicks, one of the main criteria the front office focused on was collaboration. That was one of the major issues with the previous regime under Tom Thibodeau. The former coach often dismissed feedback from the front office, choosing to stick to his own philosophy when it came to player minutes, lineups, and rotations. Leon Rose, William Wesley, and the analytics-heavy Knicks front office wanted more influence in shaping how the roster was used on a nightly basis. And while Thibodeau often ignored that input, the expectation with Mike Brown was that things would be different. During the hiring process, Brown emphasized the idea of working closely with the front office, even using the word collaboration to describe the relationship he envisioned. But according to a new report, that synergy might already be under stress. Knicks insider Ian Begley recently reported on what could be the beginning of a philosophical divide. Looking at Brown's tendencies in Sacramento, many around the league believe he'd be more inclined to start Karl Anthony Towns at the 5 and bring Mitchell Robinson off the bench. Last year, Brown's most used Kings lineups featured Domantas Sabonis at center, with 6.6 Keegan Murray playing alongside him. However, during this offseason, the Knicks made it clear they were targeting front-court versatility. They made a strong push to sign Gershon Yabusele, and did so before Brown officially took the job. The move indicated that the organization envisioned a bench role for Yabusele behind a starting front line of Towns and Robinson. That's a big deal, because while Mike Brown will ultimately decide who starts, the fact that the front office signed Yabusele with a specific lineup in mind shows that they are still very much invested in having a say, even if it doesn't fully align with Brown's historical tendency. It's early, but this difference in vision could grow if the team struggles out of the gate. If you ask the fan base, there's a clear preference right now. 4 starters are basically locked in: Jalen Brunson, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, and Karl Anthony Towns. The debate comes with the 5th spot, and that's where things get interesting. Mitchell Robinson is the top choice for a large majority of fans. If you polled Knicks Nation, you'd probably get about 75% in favor of Robinson joining that core group. Another 20–25% might make the case for Deuce McBride stepping in, especially after his growth last season. There's a tiny portion, maybe 1% or less, still clinging to last year's lineup, but that group didn't produce results, and it's widely acknowledged. Looking at the numbers, the playoff lineup that featured Brunson, Hart, Anunoby, Bridges, and Towns had a negative net rating. It just didn't work. Opposing bigs were able to ignore Josh Hart on the perimeter, which clogged the paint and created double teams that stifled not only Towns, but Brunson's driving lanes as well. Adding Mitchell Robinson next to Towns gave the lineup more defensive strength and let Towns shift to the 4, where he's much more comfortable and effective. Robinson's interior presence brought needed balance and made the group tougher to score on. And sure, when you put a bigger defender on him, it can create challenges. But Mitchell Robinson still finds ways to dominate the offensive glass. Even while recovering from injury during the playoffs, he averaged nearly 4 offensive boards per game. When you talk about elite second-chance creators, Mitch is at the very top. He might very well be the most effective offensive rebounder in the league today. That's why pairing him with Karl Anthony Towns makes so much sense. If anyone's wondering where I stand, I'll say it clearly. I believe they should both be in the starting 5. In this setup, Josh Hart becomes an energy guy off the bench. And even though Gershon Yabusele isn't a traditional big, there are ways to stagger rotations in a fast-paced system that allow both Mitch and Towns to thrive without overextending either. Robinson probably won't be logging long first-quarter stretches. Instead, think of a 5 to 6 minute shift to open games, similar to how teams like the Lakers, Kings, or even the Warriors used JaVale McGee in recent years. Mitch and JaVale aren't identical, but there's a functional comparison. Both are rim protectors who rim run and crash the glass. Robinson, of course, has an edge when it comes to rebounding consistency, but the blueprint is familiar. And let's not forget about Ariel Hukporti. He's another option off the bench who can provide size, physicality, and shot blocking. If the coaching staff wants to go with Darius Bazley at the 4 in a small ball second unit, that's still possible. New York has a legitimate path to a deep 10-man rotation. You've got Jordan Clarkson in the backcourt. You've got Deuce McBride. Hopefully Landry Shamet returns to full strength. You've got Yabusele. And you've still got Josh Hart as a plug-and-play guy anywhere from the 2 to the 4. That group, Clarkson, Deuce, Hart, Yabusele, and Hukporti, is a more than solid second unit. Now, in Sacramento, Mike Brown frequently leaned on smaller lineups. According to Ian Begley's breakdown, the Kings often featured Towns-sized players at center. The most used Kings lineup during Brown's Coach of the Year season included Harrison Barnes, Domantas Sabonis, De'Aaron Fox, Kevin Huerter, and Keegan Murray. That group logged nearly 900 minutes together. It's important to note that Keegan Murray, then a rookie, brought shooting and switchable defense, which allowed Sacramento to play smaller without completely sacrificing size. Another version of their core 5 removed Fox and added Davion Mitchell, but the centerpiece stayed the same. Sabonis was always the only true big. He wasn't paired with a McGee or Chimezie Metu or any other traditional 5. Even in the postseason, Sacramento ran nearly every meaningful lineup with Sabonis as the lone big on the floor. But things have changed. The league is now embracing dual big lineups again. We've seen it work, and the Knicks are perfectly positioned to join that wave. Towns and Robinson could be the most physically dominant rebounding duo in the NBA. And in an offense coached by someone like Mike Brown, whose schemes often generate corner threes off second-chance plays, having Mitch on the boards could be a game changer. The numbers back it up. Offensive rebounds lead to the highest quality three-point attempt. That's exactly where a pairing like Towns and Robinson could shine. Towns' ability to space the floor and Mitch's tenacity on the glass create a nightmare for opposing defenses. Back to Brown's previous rotations, you'll notice a trend. Whether it was lineup number 1, 2, 3, or 8, they all had one thing in common. Sabonis was the only big on the floor. Every single one. That was Brown's preferred approach with that particular roster. But New York isn't Sacramento. Sabonis and Towns aren't the same kind of player. Sabonis is more of a bruiser, less of a shooter, and a better post passer. But his offensive profile still allows comparisons to Towns in certain structural setups. Sabonis averaged 19 points, 14 rebounds, and 6 assists while shooting 59% from the field, with a surprising 41.7% clip from 3, even though only a small portion of his shots came from distance. He operated in the mid-range and short roll effectively, and Towns, although different in skill set, brings even more range and offensive variety. Look, Sabonis is a great talent, no disrespect at all. He's been productive everywhere he's gone. This might actually be the first time we've even mentioned him in a Knicks breakdown, but I'll say it, I'm a fan. Still, we can all agree Karl Anthony Towns brings a different level of offensive skill and spacing. Over 28% of Towns' shot attempts come from beyond the arc, and under a coach like Mike Brown, that number could very well increase, especially if he's stationed at the 4 spot full-time. Towns averaged nearly 25 points, 13 rebounds, and 3 assists per game on 52% shooting from the field, and an incredible 42% from deep. That level of offensive efficiency gives the Knicks a legitimate weapon at the forward position, and it's fair to say Towns is simply a better player than Sabonis. That's just a fact, and it will absolutely influence how the rotation is built out. Now, If Brown leaned toward Sabonis as his lone big in Sacramento, it makes sense he might see Towns in a similar role. Neither of them offers elite rim protection, but both are high IQ, versatile offensive bigs. Looking back, Sabonis actually spent his early career in OKC, playing more as a 4, and later in Indiana split time between the 4 and 5 alongside Miles Turner. There, he earned 2 All-Star nods, while the Pacers frequently rotated their bigs, sometimes subbing one in for the other or pairing them briefly. Once Sabonis was traded to Sacramento, though, things changed. Under a different coach, he played roughly 20% of his minutes at the 4. But the moment Mike Brown took over, he became the team's full-time center. There's a pattern here. Brown tends to favor single big system. Still, with the NBA evolving toward twin tower lineups again, the door is open for change. Switching over to Cat's situation, he's primarily played center his entire career. That shifted only when Minnesota brought in Rudy Gobert, which pushed Towns to the 4. Now, in New York, there's a real chance he gets back to playing his preferred position, as a stretch 4. So how do you get him there? Simple. You put Mitchell Robinson next to him. This combination may not be flashy, but it's highly effective. Every time the Knicks had Mitch on the floor with another big last season, the defense clicked. Interior presence improved. Second chance points soared. So, based on the numbers, the eye test, and the front office's backing of Mitch, starting both of them is the clear call. Now, there's always a chance Coach Brown opts for a more modern 5-out set, removing a true big for additional spacing. If that's the case, it might not be Josh Hart who slides into the lineup. It could be Deuce McBride, offering better perimeter defense and spacing. But, in my view, the team is best off sticking with Mitch in that opening unit. And hey, what do you think? Should the Knicks roll out with the double big setup, or lean into small ball spacing with a different 5-out approach? Let us know down below. Either way, it's shaping up to be one of the more fascinating rotation decisions of the offseason. One last note, Ariel Hukporti's play in Summer League shouldn't be ignored either. His development could be key in shaping that second unit and adding reliable depth at the 5. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any updates. That's all for today. We'll be back soon with more insights. Until then, take care and go Knicks.